Who's in charge, the thinker or the thought? Are we managing our own lives based on our own values and what is important to us? Or are we simply being carried along by the tide? Dr. Susan David. Hey tribe, I'm your host Hitika Kalra and you're listening to the Lone Ally podcast, where we dive deep into our emotional world to connect, love, and live better while saving ourselves from the hurts and pains of loneliness. Each week, we bring you lessons and ways to build your relationship muscles with a printable guide to keep a check on your growth. Now let's get into it. So, we began this journey of improving and escalating our relationships and the way we connect with people. But before that, we need to remember one catalyst, which will always have power over how we connect. But the way we connect also has a great power over it. Our culture. Our culture decides moral conducts and the normal, which makes it seem way beyond our reach. But we are the makers of this culture and hold more power to change it than we know, because the impact we create individually is not small. Our vision is. The impact we create individually is not small. Our vision is. We cannot see the ripples our droplets create, but they are there nonetheless. And now that our culture is going through a massive reshaping, it's our turn to make the choice for ourselves and for the world to live our lives according to our values or simply be carried along by the tide. Okay, but the diversity of cultures and its ever changing ideas make it very difficult for us to understand where we have come from, where we are, and where we are going. So, today, to make it easier for you to walk through the stories of cultures spread across a very blurred timeline, I'll give you a pair of science classes, because here we all are particles and solid liquid gas are the only states that matter. Our first state begins in the early periods of human history, which were all guarded by tribes. Communities that were built and sustained by the ideals of trust, similarities, and traditions, a purely solid state of culture. Particles, or people, were very close and tightly packed, always attached and deeply interconnected with each other. And being a collectivist culture meant raising children, cooking, hunting, everything was carried out together, and the whole tribe benefited from skills of each other. Mutual understanding, deep care, and trust among every member ignited a strong sense of love, safety, and belonging, which is the big picture we all can look at. But life wasn't as beautiful and simple as it often looks from outside. So, what was going on? Inside the particles, people who all had unique identities, like you and me, suffocated because our quote unquote tightly packed also meant barely any individual space, which can look like not being able to make your own decisions for your life or undesirable interference from others, especially in areas which are personal and private. We have all had times where we had to struggle to make a decision that concerns mostly just our life, but others tried to control it or make it for us. But imagine having to live that way for all your life. Every small decision out of your control, because the tribe has deep bonds with no space or boundaries, and a herd like mentality where everyone must go with the flow and just be the same. And talking of same, remember how all the particles of a solid look alike? Well, that stands true for a solid culture too, because the tribes use similarities as a way to build and maintain trust in their communities. As it's easier to trust people who dress like us, behave like us, and work like us. And I know you can already see the problem with this approach, but if you are anything like me, this will first make you wonder, why was trust so important to have a community? So I dug in deeper. Turns out the answer is too obvious if we look into the biggest threats that were faced by the tribe, which was, well, the other tribes. Yes, the wilderness was scary. Yeah, poisonous plants, deadly animals, but we were humans, right? So smart. We were learning from each other's mistakes, understanding plant life, agriculture, taming domestic animals, and hunting the wild ones. So the only enemy that was as smart as humans was, well, human itself. One tribe could harm another for resources or riches, and in such times, making a friend for an enemy was oops, but mistaking an enemy for a friend was death. So every member of the tribe needed to be highly trusted, and even an act of expressing our individuality was taken for betrayal of the communal customs and laws. You couldn't think of personal gain, you couldn't wear what you like. Sometimes people weren't even allowed to choose occupations or marry without communal approval. So, well, even the ideas like different sexualities, races, religions coexisting together is too far fetched in a solid culture. And in a culture that suffocates our identity, we may feel connected to others but not to ourselves. Brené Brown describes true belonging as the practice of believing and belonging to yourself so deeply that you can share your most authentic self to the world, which means the solid state is still lonely because we may fit in, but we would be strangers to ourselves. Belonging doesn't require us to change who we are, it requires us to be exactly who we are. Okay, whatever you're doing, this will be a good time to take a stretch or drink water while we take a bird's eye view of the solid state of culture. So, as we saw, the solid structure ensures deep rooted connection, which brings feelings of love, care, and safety, and also easy collaboration, which can bring about great progress of our society as a whole. But the cost of our individuality and uniqueness is too high a price to pay for this. And if there is loneliness in not having strong connection with others, there is yet still loneliness in not being able to have a connection with ourselves, express or be ourselves. So even though the solid state of culture aligns with our evolutionary social needs, it is not sustainable. Alright, ready to get your glasses on again? Let's go! So, now what was our next plan since solid was clearly not working? Well, that's the thing. There wasn't a plan because the problem was not really communal but individual. So that's where the change emerged. Individual particles began to break away from solid and started fending for themselves and their own families. And lured by the freedom and success of these revolting particles, more and more people started to join in, eventually forming a gas culture, an individualistic society. And just for disclaimer, being a history student myself, I'm aware that many complex factors were involved in the emergence of our individualistic society, like industrialization, modernization. But this is just my metaphorical theory to simplify big and complex changes so that we don't get stuck in historical details and can focus on ideas and ways of forming our cultures, how they turned out for us. Okay? So, how did this new emerging gas culture looked? Actually, looks, because most superpowers today are centers of these gas cultures, while developing and underdeveloped countries, which are still rooted in solid culture, are slowly making this transformation. Which does make us think that gas culture or individualistic society means growth and success, while solid or collectivist culture is backward. But that is because we are only thinking of individualistic culture as a whole. So we need to remember the higher the gas, the less dense it is, and the less stable it is. Enough science, right? Let's understand it straight. What is going on with the individualistic society? So, The gas state of a culture gives power to the individual. They earn, spend, and care for no one but themselves or their own family, which allows them a chance to grow and escalate alone and with the right environment faster. Whereas the old solid culture meant everything was shared, everyone was cared for, and no one was left behind. So even though the growth was slow, it was together. And I know right now most of you all are too readily choosing the gas culture because how awesome it is to have such independence and easy growth. But the ignorance clock has ticked and it's time to pick up a magnifying glass. The people in gas seem to be really enjoying this solitary float ride, but not for long. Because we weren't made evolutionarily social and hardwired for connection to be cute. That was so because that's what we needed. We need each other. I need people to listen to my story so that my life isn't just a walk from birth to death, but a journey that made a difference to those whom I met in the way. I need people to listen to their stories so that I don't have to make the mistakes they did. I need people to collaborate with. I need people to have loving bonds so that I have someone to care for and someone to care for me. I need people to lead and I need people to lead me. And without such connections in every field of life, we are lost. Lost in a workplace where I cannot be authentic but some fake work self because I cannot discuss my personal life. So I will bring only half of me, half of my effort and half of my productivity because humans are not logical. We are psychological. Without connections, I'm even lost as a caregiver, rummaging through the pages of parenting books, trying to figure it out. In this massive gaseous culture, we are so far from others that we have to make a huge effort to come close and bond. And with no such ground to naturally build our relationships, we are so lonely and lost. And I wish loneliness was just a feeling of disconnection, being lost, not belonging, but that is just the beginning. Feeling lonely is okay. Staying lonely is not. Staying lonely is the seed to so many mental and physical health issues that it is considered worse than a pack of 15 cigarettes a day by researchers. Because evolutionarily, loneliness meant survival mode, on guard from dangers of the wild. And when we live in a culture that propagates loneliness, we are constantly living in this survival mode that is definitely deteriorating our bodies and minds. We are all unstable as gases because we are biologically, evolutionarily, and psychologically built for solid state connections. Okay, time for another stretch. So, summing up the gaseous state of culture, we have learned individualistic society is a dominant model in the world right now, as it focuses on individual growth and prosperity. But gas has separated us too far apart, leaving no way of naturally coming together, connecting, and collaborating, which means our cultural growth and innovation has slowed down, and even worse, it is way off from our evolutionary needs, leaving most of us lonely. And loneliness can be mortally dangerous if not overcome. Alright, getting back to work in 3, 2, 1. So, both these cultures had positives and negatives, but no matter how much we prefer certain strengths of these two cultures, neither the suffocation nor the disconnection can be survived in long term. So we need a third world culture, a culture that connects us easily and deeply and yet gives us freedom to be ourselves, allows us to move faster individually while being a part of something bigger than just us. And that is what I call a liquid culture. A world where, just like liquid particles, we are all connected to each other, but with space to express ourselves, move around, get ahead, have boundaries. It means someone always has my back, and yet my no is accepted and respected. But being a liquid doesn't always mean having the perfect balance of space and bonds. It just means we have the freedom to choose that. We are not strangled to have a certain amount of connection, nor are we flying alone having to effortfully forge the connections. Instead, we are inside a connected body where we can choose the level of density we want for ourselves. I can be introverted and deeply connected and fulfilled just by 3 4 people, or extroverted and stay in touch with a lot of friends. I build boundaries that what is okay for me in a certain relationship and what is not. And I decide how close I want to keep my friends and my family. Oh, wow. So this finally feels right. This feels like a beautiful world to be in. But yeah, the culture most of us are living in is not like that. And of course, we cannot single handedly change the entire social structure. But here's the secret: we don't have to. We just have to condense ourselves. Liquid culture doesn't need a whole nation or even a community to thrive. It only needs you. You can be a droplet. I can be a droplet. I don't need the whole world to change. I just need to condensate myself. And that's the greatest beauty of liquid cultures. Others can stay as they like. We don't have to change them because our liquid mixes the gases and the solids within itself. The liquid culture is accepting and loving to all across every difference. Yes, even the difference of the way others socialize, because we can connect with them while maintaining the space that is just right for us by standing up for ourselves, prioritizing our own needs, building boundaries, and saying no. So, just like they say, one culture to rule them all, one culture to find them, one culture to bring them all, and in the unity bind them. Okay, time for another quick stretch. The liquid state of culture is the middle path that keeps us connected and grounded in love and kindness while having enough space for individuality, choice, and growth. Here we have safe boundaries and the power to decide the right quantity and quality of our relationships. And we don't have to change the world to attain this, but become small droplets ourselves. Because liquidity unites across all differences. Time out. So, this beautiful liquid culture is exactly what the Lone Ally aims to build. Not by some dramatic global change, but by turning people one by one into droplets. Because when gas will condensate or solid melt, small droplets will join without any effort, and it won't take time for puddles to become seas. It's just about the first few drops whose freedom and happiness lures the other. So, how do we do that? How do we change ourselves, make this choice for ourselves and the global culture? Well, we have you covered. In this last section of the podcast, we will discuss ways we can begin our process of becoming liquid by small steps every day. You can write these points down or print our guide that you can fill up every day on your device or paper. The link is available in description. Now let's get straight into it. Number 1, prioritize. Prioritizing is the first step in productivity, efficiency, and organization, so we all get what it's about. But no matter who we ask, what is your life's biggest priority? The answer is almost always a person or a connection. People say their family, their children, their parents, their friends, yet the proportion of time and effort they spend on them is so small. That makes us even bad at productivity and work ethic, which we are so committed to, because we are not even aligned with our overall life priorities. So, the first thing we need to do in order to be grounded in connections is to slowly turn connecting into a natural daily part of our life as a priority. Don't schedule time with your friends and family around your work. Schedule your work around them. Otherwise, work will fill up your schedule and your real priorities will soon be left behind, leaving us disconnected and floating like a lonely particle. Number two, learn. Like we said in the intro of this podcast, we spend so much time and effort learning for our growth in productivity, fitness. But what about the connection which our life is rooted in? Which make productivity and fitness matter. We need to make time and put in effort to learn about them, to learn how to apologize, build boundaries. You can read a book, watch videos. If internet has given you global access, why not use it to build muscles you'll need in the real world? Your relationship muscles. And well, the fact that you're listening to this podcast has already got you way ahead in the game. The game of life? Literally every field of life. So, the final and the last, act. Act on your priorities, your relationships. Act on what you learn about them. Connect with more people. Check in on your friends you miss talking with. Be kind to people and take these actions to ground yourself in connections so that you never ever stop in your growth journey. And in every step of the way, we are here for you. The Lone Ally will help you prioritize, give you lessons to act on, but the final choice always lies with you. What culture you want to live in, what you prioritize, what is important to you. And today's podcast was just a reminder of that. That you have a choice and your choice has so much power. Individual choices have transformed the world once before and they will do it again. Not just once again but over and over again, and today you can make that choice. Today you can take a first action and find that link in description. Download or print that guide. Keep a check on yourself throughout the week. And the way you feel and the way you grow will be enough proof, enough motivation to keep you going. Okay, y'all, it's time for the guide. It is super easy and fun to access. You just have to tap the link in the description, which will lead you to the PDF. You can download it wherever you are on your phone or your computer. I'd recommend opening it through Chrome so that the option to edit and fill in is just a pencil icon away. You can even print it and pin it on your board so that you can tick off and write in by hand, which to be honest is more fun, but I can understand the laziness to get up and print it. So, what does it have? This week's guide has a priority table where you can check off on how you feel you did today. Was your connection priority score medium, high, or low? You decide. And there's even a space given where you can reflect, why was this so? This way, on the end of week, you can look back and understand what was the most common reason for success or failure and use that to do better each week. Thank you so much for listening, guys. A very short and concise version of this podcast is available on my newsletter. I'll share a direct link to that blog in the description. You can watch a beautiful video version soon on the Lone Ally YouTube channel. The link to that also in the doobly-doo. We are on Instagram at thelone.ally and at Facebook by the Lone Ally Foundation. Thank you for listening. New podcast comes out each Tuesday and blog every Friday. Subscribe to stay tuned.